Recently, can you, I hate to ask, can you hear me? Because if, because if they can't, they aren't going to raise their hand anyway. I guess you can hear me, or at least you're laughing. Okay. Recently, I was talking with one of our friars, not one of the friars that lives here at St. Bonaventure. We had some visitors recently, and one friar said he was on the plane and he was sitting there. Wasn't wearing clericals, and he's sitting there in the chair or the seat and reading the American Magazine. Now, American Magazine is a Jesuit publication, comes out every other week. It's probably, in my estimation, is one of the best Catholic magazines out. And as he's reading it, the gentleman next to him noticed it, and he said, well, what do you do? He says, well, I'm a priest. Oh, he said, I've always kind of wondered, I'd like to talk to a priest, and I have a question. Is not exactly these words. Sometimes when you hear a story and then we kind of embellish the story, or we don't quite get the exact words. But he said, I've always wanted to ask a priest if you Catholics really believed in the Bible. And the friar said, heck, we wrote it. and the guy probably was so taken aback he was speechless, But the friar was right. We did write it. When you look back, we feel that the Bible is inspired by God, and we wouldn't have the Bible if it wasn't for the Catholics, and especially during the Dark Ages when the monks kept it alive when kind of the world was going to pot at that time. And well, thank God for the Catholics, okay? So the reason I mention that, we certainly believe in the Bible. That's one of the sources of our faith. And sometimes people, you can read the Bible and get a message out of it, and then you read it again and get another message, and read it again and get another message. And so today, the three readings, the first reading had to do with trust in God. It really came down to that. Do we really trust in God? Hopefully we do. There's times maybe we wonder if God really hears us, but we need to put our trust in God. The second reading, St. Paul's letter, talks about, or the second reading talks about life after life. Isn't it interesting how many people live in today's world who do not belong, or who do not believe in an afterlife? They think we are born, we live, we die, and we cease to exist. Some people think they believe in reincarnation, that we come back as another person or an animal or whatever the situation might be. But the only thing that really makes sense is that there is life after life. And this reading is talking about it. There is life after life. And that life is God. See, it's the only thing that gives really meaning to this life. God created us for himself. But it's up to us to make the choice while we live in this life that we choose God or reject God. And that there is life after life, and we either choose heaven or we choose hell, which means we turn our back on God and choose otherwise. So it's the only thing, it really gives meaning to the life that we live in this, that there is a reward, so to speak, after this life. Then the gospel talks about happiness. Now, what does it mean to be happy? I suppose if I get a lot of different answers what happiness is. Children, and maybe grown-ups too, We want to have something, and we think that something is going to make us happy. A toy for a kid, oh, I just want this toy, or whatever it is. They get it, they use it, and it wears off. They're looking for something else. It never really lasts, that feeling. And adults can be the same way. We can say, well, what's going to make me happy? Is it going to be a big, beautiful home? Is it going to be winning the lottery, lots of money? Is it going to be that I'm successful, whatever success is? And yet, those things are not going to last. See? They're here today and gone tomorrow. So what is true happiness? It really has to come from within, not from without. Things are not going to make us essentially happy. Now, recently, I read this, and I think there's truth to it. It says, in fact, many authors who have studied the pursuit of happiness have observed that the happiest people on earth are not those who pursue happiness, but those who seek God and serve others. Those who seek God and serve others. Very profound. We're not going to be happy without God, really. And we're not going to be happy unless we reach out of ourselves and serve others. Love others. There's the two great commandments. Love God with our whole mind, heart, and soul, and love our neighbor as ourselves. If we don't feel loved or we cannot love, we're missing out what true happiness is. Lasting happiness. We know down deep and that if we believe in God, that's part of what true happiness is. Do we really believe? And that goes back to trusting in God in the first reading, and then being able to get out of ourselves and serve others. If we're going to center in on ourselves and what our own needs always and be selfish, we'll never be happy. So I think these many authors were right on in what they had to say about that. Now, there are other things, about happiness, but I think there's one other thing I just want to read, and something for us to think about and maybe be challenged. It says, this is not to say that in order to find happiness, we need to give away everything we possess. That might help, or it might be the worst thing we can possibly do. It might fill us with so much resentment, or even worse, with so much self-righteous pride that we would be intolerable. It is to say, however, that some of us have our values all out of whack. This is why we are so miserable. So many people are. There's so many hurting people and miserable people in this life. It's sad, but it's real. There are only two sources of happiness in this entire world. One is a relationship with God. The other is a right relationship with our fellow human beings. Love God with our whole mind, heart, and soul, and love of our neighbor as ourselves. You cannot love somebody else if you don't love yourself, because you can't give what you don't have. Everything else is meaningless, ultimately. Poverty or wealth, handicap or health, surrounded by loved ones or weeping beside a lonely grave, we can still have a wellspring of joy within if we understand what true happiness is. So it's just something to challenge us as the gospel should always challenge us to, if we are thinking right, or if we need to rethink our value system in our life. And one other thing, it seems, at least we can think about this, and I've read it. It says, the reason it shows that people of faith are happier people. They generally have more stable relationships, and they have a greater sense of purpose for their lives. And there's one other thing here I thought I read, and it talked about what would we like to put on our stone, our gravestone. And they listed a lot of different things people would like to put there, but one of the best, as I read about it, is, "Dear God, thanks for letting me visit. I had a wonderful time." You know? What a profound thing that is. Being thankful for God that I was given life. It was a wonderful visit, and I had a wonderful time because I was happy. May God bless you.